Welcome to Women Unleashed.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Women Unleashed. So today I've got the amazing Sarah on my podcast.
Thanks for having me today, Dom.
Honestly, absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming. All the way from the UK, actually.
Hey.
Let's pretend that you're here just for my podcast.
Totally just flew into this podcast.
Just come for this. So I want to talk to you about a number of things today. But firstly, could you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, so the audience get to know who you are?
Yes, I'm Sarah Moxom. I'm a serial entrepreneur, business owner, leader, also podcaster.
Yes.
Have my fingers in lots of different pies.
I like that. You've got to have your eggs in a few different baskets, haven't you?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what is kind of your main business? What do you do? What's your baby?
My main business is a staffing agency called Phoenix Staffing. So we provide temporary work to people in the nightlife, hospitality and events industry, which is kind of really why I'm out here. Because I opened a branch in Dubai.
Exactly. That's why you're here.
That's why I'm here.
Exactly. So how long have you been in that industry?
All my life. 15 years I've had the business. Set up when I was 20 and always worked in hospitality, nightlife and events. So most of everything that I've done has been around that industry.
Amazing. And what made you get into it at the age of 20? What kind of led you to that?
Yeah, so 2 drivers at that age, having fun, making money.
I mean, I love that.
Cool. So I found shotgirling.
Okay.
University. Don't know if you're familiar with shotgirls.
Yeah. I've done it myself. Yeah, absolutely.
So big cash cow. Whilst I was at uni, you could go in, work 4 hours, cash it in, and go home, making more money than anyone around me. I was like, this is winning. So in my last year of uni, I was like, what do I want to do? Do I want to go and get a proper job? Obviously, lots of people at my uni were going into the city or law or all these different things. Nothing kind of resonated with me, nothing clicked.
Yeah.
But what I was doing, I loved. So I was like, let's grow something from that place. So in my last year of uni, I set up the company.
I love that. That is absolutely amazing. That's so inspirational as well. I feel like I'm going to have to do another podcast just talking about that, the business side of things, because that is so inspirational for you to do that. But obviously I know prior to that you went through quite a lot with your health, and that's kind of why I wanted to get you on here to speak about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was 14, my dad had an operation that went wrong. So I was always a daddy's girl.
Yeah.
Girls, and it was like me and my dad.
Absolutely. I'm the same. You're the firstborn, you're the favourite. Always the favourite. Yeah. You just know.
It was really, for me, when my dad had this operation that went wrong, it left him paralysed from the waist down.
Oh, bloody hell.
So it was a big hit in who I am, who I was as a woman, like this relationship that I had, this man, this protector, this person that I had around me wasn't the same person that he was almost overnight. So I shortly after developed my first intimate relationship at 15 with this guy who wasn't great. So he wasn't great news. He was quite controlling, very abusive emotionally and physically in the end as well. So through that like double situation very close together, I lost control of my reality. I kind of felt like I wasn't me anymore, like I didn't know who I was.
It's a lot to go through, like, especially the both like male orientated things, aren't they? And that literally destroys you.
Yeah, totally. And so I guess I was probably searching for like a safe space in a man at that point of time and didn't find one.
At that age?
Massive age, yeah. So I began to control my food. And it didn't start from like, I want to be skinny. It wasn't like I had this idealized view of how I wanted to look. It was more, let me be really good at something. Yeah. Let me really be perfect at this thing. Yeah. And let me control my reality through controlling what I was eating.
Okay. And so you wasn't kind of doing it to like be in good shape, or you were?
I wasn't. That wasn't the driver. No. It was really about feeling in control.
Yeah, so you wanted just to be in control of something because you weren't in control of obviously what happened to your dad or your relationships, anything like that. You just wanted something that you could actually physically control yourself. Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
And it was very slow. So you kind of like, you realise like kind of, oh gosh, I can survive on this many calories. Oh, I can take it down a little bit more and a little bit more. And so it was very gradual over the space of about a year and a half. At the end of that year and a half, weighed 5 stone. I had a BMI of 12.5 and my organs and my whole body was in a critical state of shock.
And how old was you? 16? That is absolutely tiny. Absolutely tiny. So how long did it take you to kind of get to that place?
It was over about a year and a half of dieting, of controlling, and your body gets very used to it.
Oh, yeah.
The body and the mind is very smart. So you can tell yourself you can survive on that. And I was absolutely and completely fine. I think at one point it was about 400 calories a day.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I get it from the perspective that you just do get used to it. When I used to compete, it was the same. I had days where, my food was as low as about 700 calories for just a few days, though. And you just survive it, and your body does get used to it because you get used to feeling so rubbish, and you don't actually remember what it feels like to feel normal, in a way, as well. So when you were going through that, was that going through your mind at all? Like, I'm getting really, really skinny, like I'm getting anorexic more or less, or was that not?
It's a very strange experience where you don't see yourself as you are. So you look in the mirror and everyone could see, I mean, to give you like a really graphic description.
Yeah, go for it.
My tailbone, where your bum is, would actually get friction burn because of how much it stuck out.
It's like when old people like lay in bed and they get, yeah.
I'd be sitting down and I would have friction bone on my body at 16.
That is crazy.
I couldn't see what everyone else could see. You'd walk down the street and people would be like, what? Because you just look like
Skin and bone.
Muscle. Your arms and everything are so tiny.
Were you going to school at this point?
A-levels. Yeah, so I was at college. And you just don't see what others see in the mirror. It's almost virtually impossible. And I don't think I ever did. I still can't remember.
Yeah. It's body dysmorphia though as well. Like through just dieting, when people diet, people are like, oh, I'm fat. You're not fat. You just don't see what other people see. I completely get that. So what were your parents thinking at this time? What were they saying to you?
It was obviously a really tough time at home. And we've had lots of conversation and processing since, because my dad was sick. So my mum had become his carer. He became paralysed from the waist down. He then battled with PTSD badly, so his mental health was in bits. My mum overnight became the breadwinner, the caregiver to me and my two sisters, became everything. So whilst they saw what I was going through when it was at its real bad stage, they kind of didn't see me going through that process because there was so much that was going on in our family life. I remember it took one of my family friends to come over and say, like, have you looked at Sarah? And then they were like, gosh. And then they woke up to it. And then I remember there was a real journey and battle where they were trying to convince me and show me that I was wrong. Not as wrong, that I was ill. Yeah. And I couldn't see it. So I remember my dad taking me to this like private clinic, and everyone there had an eating disorder. There were people being fed by tubes, and and I was like, oh, isn't this really sad? And he was like, Sarah, like, this is where you're gonna go if we don't make active change together.
That's given me goosebumps. That's crazy.
And then I remember they printed out all of the stuff online and they sat me down, and it was, like, you can have heart attacks, your organs can shut down, all of the things that can happen at the stage that I was at. And I was like, this is really sad.
I can literally just imagine you sitting there like,
it's not really sad, like complete disassociation from what they were trying to show me. And it was only one night when I didn't have dinner that night, which obviously wouldn't necessarily be a big deal for someone who was at a normal weight, but it's a huge deal if you don't have, whilst you're at that point. And I remember I'd been working at that point in time. It was the only job I've ever had, which was working at River Island. And I'd got home, wouldn't have dinner, got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and I had the early onset of a heart attack. And I collapsed.
At the age of 16?
Yeah.
At the age of 16?
Yeah.
That is absolutely, so I'm guessing hospital straight away,
Exactly.
got rushed in.
Mum rushed me in, and when they're connecting all the wires to me, they then said, the nurse said, like, what's wrong? And it was only then that I said, I'm anorexic.
Okay, so you actually...
Then I admitted it.
Yeah.
And then it was like the mind and the body finally reconnected. I couldn't eat 400 calories anymore because I'd accepted a new reality, a new state, and now I was working to be well, to be healthy. So it was a fascinating journey because then I didn't have energy anymore. I needed to sleep all the time. If I didn't eat well, I was constantly then hungry. It's like my whole reality just shifted.
The mindset as well. It's because you become aware, like you say, the body and the mind, like they need to be connected. And when they're disconnected, nothing's going to work. Absolutely nothing. So what were you thinking at that stage when, you got taken to hospital, and were you thinking, I'm going to die? Like, was that a thought that was going through your head?
Yeah, I remember being in the car with my mum thinking like, yeah, shit. No. Yeah, that's when you really had to face that reality. But then after that, I was set on being well. So a lot of anorexics or people who've been given that diagnosis, they will cycle. It will be something that they will keep going back to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think statistics are 40% of people die.
From anorexia. That's a lot.
It's very, very high. Very, very high.
Because of the relapse, that get back into the vicious cycle of it, I guess.
And I suppose it's one of the mental health conditions where you're putting your body into starvation. That's part of the definition of it. So unlike other mental health conditions where they can be hidden or, you can battle with them but nobody will know, this is very physical.
Cool, you can see it and everybody can see it around you. And I guess it's not easy to go through, obviously, for you and your family, but it took that one event, well, them couple of events in your early childhood or teenage years to kind of spiral you into that, which is also really sad, but it's something that obviously can't be helped, And I think there is a lot of people out there who do go through what you've been through, and maybe they're even listening to this podcast and they don't really know how to snap out of it. Maybe what would you say? Like, what would you advise people to do if they're going through something like what you went through?
Listen to those around you that love you. There's always going to be someone who's speaking truth in your ear. And one of the biggest things for me was shutting down the people that loved me. It was like I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to connect. I didn't want to. When I really embraced where I was at, I was like, oh, my friends, I don't want to see them, or I don't want to. There was that initial desire. So I'd say listen to those that love you, that are around you, that are for you, because they have got wisdom, and sometimes you are gonna not have the wisdom for yourself.
I think as well, when you're that lean, right, and you don't eat much and your energy is that low, going from competition prep, because I looked more or less anorexic looking back, like size 4 was too big, like you don't want to communicate with people at all because your energy levels are so low as well. You don't want to socialise, you don't want to speak to no one. I remember when we were all, I think it was like Easter or something, and everyone was around at our house and I was prepping, so obviously I didn't eat anything that was there. One of my auntie she went, you look skinny. I went, I'm not skinny, I'm lean. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, I was skin and bone. I was literally skin and bone, but you don't want to accept it. And I was just getting so snappy and angry with people for actually judging me. I was like, well, you wouldn't tell a fat person they're fat, so why are you telling me I'm skinny? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It was the body shaming, and I was like, I didn't like that. But looking back, they had my best interest at heart. So we need to be, like you say, more aware of that. Right, okay, so you got into the hospital, you got onto the good track of eating again. What did you do from then onwards to kind of set you on a good path in terms of work, education and everything else? Because I'm guessing you had a lot of time off school now?
Didn't. So
you didn't?
Really, like where I was at in terms of medically, I should have been admitted into hospital, force-fed, and that should have been what happened. And they said to me, if you do not put on weight every single week that we weigh that will be your fate. So my ultimatum was literally, but then that's the hardest thing to do. So my setup was this: I had to go in every week for psychotherapy and to see a dietitian, fixed appointments, couldn't miss it, boom. But I was able to continue doing my A-levels. And that was a really important part of just the way that I've been brought up. My parents hugely valued academia. Yeah. They wanted me to go to uni. And it gave me a focus outside of my current situation. So actually having that and being allowed to do that, I think was part of the driver of being well. Yeah. It really just pulled me forward because it took me out of what I was, focusing on, which is if I'd been in hospital, everything would have been around food, diet, this, that, which obviously is what I needed, but I was still able to live a somewhat normal life, which was great. So for me, the real physical, critical stage was only 2 years of recovery, which, I mean, I don't want to say that's rare or not, but I never cycled back. I was never at critical stage again. I might have been lean or had times where I dieted or, I definitely have gone through a journey with my body since then. I wouldn't say that I was mentally well. Yeah. But I would say physically, I was out of critical stage within 2 years and I've never been back.
That's really, really good. And what's your relationship like with food now?
Love food. Absolutely love food. I don't really enjoy cooking that much.
Okay.
And I've journeyed with this in time. Like, is this like a remnant of anorexia? And I've asked myself these questions because you do. When you,
I was just
when
going to
you've had
say,
an
do you
eating
question
disorder,
yourself?
yourself. And you know, you kind of go like, have I still got? But then I'm just like, nah, I'm an entrepreneur who likes doing stuff, doesn't really, finds cooking like a bit of a waste of time because there's other stuff to do. Efficiency. But I love eating. So
that's so good. And do you ever like diet or anything like that now, or do you think that would kind of spiral you into?
I don't diet now.
I mean, you don't need to. You look great, but
Diet now. I have. I've since I was 23. I've had personal trainers. And so I've done it in healthy ways. So if I've wanted to go through a season, I've got a photo shoot, I've got a this, and then I have gone through. I think the lowest I got to was probably about 10 years ago. It was about 11% body fat, which was I was tiny, I was lean, very, very ripped. But that was the last time I did a serious shred. I think also body image has changed now. Like curves, we love the booty, and you know we're totally different to 10 years ago. 10 years ago was all like the abs. And it was like, let's get the abs out. Now you're kind of like, we're not really that, as girls, as women, we're not really as
bothered about that. Everybody just wants BBLs.
This is it. It's like booty.
I think that will change anyway. It always changes. It's like everybody will be going skinny again, and I'm not about that era because I just can't be walking around that lean again because for me it's bad for my body image. But do you never find yourself, you look in the mirror and you have these thoughts of like, oh, I wish I was skinny, or I wish I were this, I wish I were that?
Yes and no. So I think it's natural.
Absolutely.
Everybody is going to wish they were X. And you just embrace that momentary thought, and then you go, I'm fucking hot.
I'm fucking amazing.
Replace the thought, like, I look amazing.
Amazing, yeah. I love that mindset. And you know what, like, I think going through what you went through and like me with the bodybuilding side of things, it does warp how you see yourself massively. And then I've still struggled with my body image now, 3 years after, finishing competing. And I'll still look in the mirror some days and I'll be like, oh, I'm fat. I'm not fat. I'm just not as lean as I was, or as lean as I'd like to be. But then I like your mindset, just flip that.
Flip it straight away. And I'm quite similar with the gym. So like on my rest days, I'm like, oh, I'm not hungry yet. If I don't have my gym, I ain't okay. I fully own that. Like the gym for me and training for me became a really healthy part of being well. Like I love to work out, and I love all different kinds of working out. I did a half marathon, earlier this month or last month? I've done weights for 11 years. I love hot yoga, I love Pilates, and I think and at times I've gone again, am I obsessed? Is this part of anorexia? And I'm like, no, it's part of living a healthy life.
Yeah, a healthy lifestyle.
And so I think a lot of if it's actually reframing it, when you've gone through something like you have with being super lean for competing, or you've gone through an eating disorder, stop calling it that thing. Like, look at the people around you that have never had those things. They're just as obsessed or just as into those things.
Absolutely.
Like, you're well.
It's normal.
You are well.
Absolutely normal to feel that way and to want to do these things. I'm actually really surprised that you said, that people actually really spiral back into it, because not many people talk about eating disorders, right? And I don't think it's a topic there's not as much awareness around it, okay? And with you saying that 40% of people, die from it, and most of people relapse, and the fact that you haven't, and does that make you feel like really proud of yourself? Do you feel like, yes, I did this?
Interesting question. I don't really think about it.
No? Do you put it in the back of your head, kind of what happened?
It's just, I just go, this was my life. Yeah. So I should probably celebrate it and go like, this is epic and amazing. Yeah. And I just go, this is what I've lived. I think where I get the kind of the buzz from, or the real kick from, is when I've been able to help someone else with it. So there's been lots of family friends, or there's been eating disorder unit clinics that I've gone into to speak and share, and just be able to impact somebody else in that journey. And they find that hugely inspirational, because they'll be like, gosh, you're successful in business, you're doing this, and look at what I could become. What steps do I need to take now? What thought do I need to change to move forward? I think that's where I get my buzz and my kick. It's seeing that impact for somebody else. On a day-to-day basis, I'm just like, Well, that's my life.
Yeah, but it's inspirational to other people. It's very inspirational. And if somebody that's going through this can look at you and be like, oh my God, she got out of this, so can I. Like, you're doing one thing right, even if you can help one person, you know? If there's somebody on this podcast that's listening to this and is now like, wow, I'm in the place that she was in, how do I get out, you know?
Yeah. And I think there's a big piece around it as well of like actually asking yourself questions around your relationship with food. So that even if you're not clinically anorexic or clinically you've been given the diagnosis that you are X, I know like for some time what I realized when I was trying to get out of the hospital's radar was I didn't have a good relationship with food yet, but what I did was drink. So I realised if I went out at the weekends, drank loads of calories, I would then put on the small amount of weight that I needed to be making progress.
So the unhealthy way.
An unhealthy way. So it's actually asking yourself, like, what is your relationship with food in general? What is your relationship with what you're consuming?
Yeah, because that is healthy. That's what defines healthy. Yes, you can be gaining weight in different ways, like you say, going out drinking, or you could be doing it in the healthy way. So actually going to that, now you mentioned that, did you kind of spiral into that negative way of, you know, going out partying, drinking, because you were trying to cover up kind of how you felt post?
Yes. Yeah, I mean everything is who we're exposed to as well. Yeah. So you know, I'd grown up in a Christian household. Yeah. So parents were church pastors. It was very protective. I was the oldest of 3 girls. Yeah. You know, the world that we've been exposed to and our worldview was stunning, but very sheltered.
Yeah.
In retrospect. So after I'd kind of got off the radar of the nurses and I was signed off of needing to go and see them every week, I felt like I had freedom. And then I'd got into university in central London. My mum was like, Sarah, do you think you should just take a year just to breathe? Like, you've just had a life-changing thing. Do you think it would be good to recoup? Nope.
Nope, I'm off. See you later.
And I'm doing it my way.
I'm going.
I went. And it was through that I met just some interesting people.
Yeah,
you know,
as you
do in the middle of London, nightlife. And that's the world that I got within. Yeah. And so I think that became my method of putting on weight and my method of, and that was my life choices. Had I met a different group of people, had I chosen to go and do something different, had I grown up differently, I probably would have chosen a different culture. But that became my way. Do I regret it? Absolutely not. I've got great memories, great times. I'm healthy, I'm well now. It's all part of my journey.
It is part of your journey. It's more, what's most important is how you are now. And, like, you know, all the little paths that led you to where you are now.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, I that was just part of what I did. And it did mean I had to address my relationship with food later. It did mean I had to address my relationship with my body later. Like, I got my cosmetic surgery done at a really young age. I got my boobs done at a really young age. I didn't have a good acceptance of my body or love for my body. But that came later. So at whatever point you do it, you can do it. It's never too late. It's never
too late.
You know, if you've buried stuff from years before, today's your day.
Yeah, I mean, it'll always come up, won't it? Like, it will always come up, and I guess you just have to tackle it on, like, head on first. So you did just that, and I mean, looking at you now, you look so healthy, you look so well, and you look so happy as well. And I feel like it's just, everything that you've been through, all the hardship has led you to where you are now. Do you ever, like, do any talks or speak to people that are going through this? You know, like, I don't know if there's, like, groups or charities or anything like that?
I have done. Yeah, I have done. And I really, really enjoy that.
Do they reach out to you, or is it something that you kind of... Well,
it's a mixture of both over the years. I haven't actually done it for some years. Probably pre-COVID was the last time I did one. And, yeah, it was awesome.
Inspirational,
exactly.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And how do you feel when you see these people that are going through that? Does that kind of bring back memories or emotions of how you felt?
It does and it doesn't, because I think as I've spoken individually to people, there's a level of understanding and there also isn't. Yeah. It's so, like, anything to do with mental health and particularly anorexia is so unique. Mm-hmm. And something I've realised is everyone has had a different starting point. Everyone has had different reasons why they've done it. Yeah. So you can relate, and also it's actually about listening and hoping that just that one thing that you say may resonate and land. And it does. It's more, I think often more it's your story of your life. It's what you've gone on to do next. It's not actually do you connect in that dark place, because that dark place is different for everybody. But it's actually, let me look at what you've gone on to do. Now I believe I can.
Yeah.
It's the belief that you instill.
Do you know any people who, I don't know whether you're friends with anyone who's been through an eating disorder and come out of it at the better end as well?
Yeah, yes, and the one person I'm quite close to is a family friend. She still struggles a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot.
It's really sad to see, isn't it? Especially when it's somebody around you.
Yeah, and her diagnosis went into loads of different things.
So it's not as simple as just the one thing. It is really sad, but seeing people like yourself get out of it and do so well and be so successful is just an inspiration for other people, I guess.
I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. One more question for you, though.
Of course.
So, you know how you said you didn't see that you were so anorexic, so lean, so underweight. Do you think he was in denial, or do you think it's more of a body image thing? Body dysmorphia?
There's a friend of mine who battled with anorexia as well, and she painted the most gorgeous picture.
Okay.
And there was this picture, she's an artist, and there's a picture that describes exactly what you're saying. So you had a face of a person, one side of the person was a sunflower, and the other side of the person was a skeleton, like it was like this horrible deformed thing. And you almost feel like there's two people inside of you at that point in time. You feel literally like you are split. You know what you need to do to be well. You know what the choice of life is. And then you've also got this choice where you're like, that's a driver too. Like, don't do that thing. Like, and it's such a strange experience.
Like, obviously, nobody will know how it feels until they go through that, and we don't want, obviously, people to go through that. But that's a really good way to kind of answer it, because...
That piece of art's always stuck with me. I actually bought it from her in the end because I was just like, she just captured sometimes what you can't explain when you're going through an experience.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's absolutely amazing. I've got the visual picture in my head of literally someone's face that's a sunflower and a skeleton. It's crazy. It's actually giving me goosebumps just talking about this, but honestly, like, you've done amazing, and you should be so, so proud of yourself. And those moments when you don't think about it, just be like, you know what? I've gone through a lot. And I should be proud of where I am now, especially because you've not spiraled. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Sarah. And for anyone who is listening, where can they find you? Because people might want to reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, if anyone listening is going through anorexia, going through an eating disorder, or knows somebody who is, because I think sometimes the hardest thing is actually being that bystander on the side. I remember talking to my parents so much about it, and like, they knew what I needed to do. My loved ones knew what they wanted for me, but you cannot force feed someone. And so if you're that person where you know that your loved one is going through that, reach out. And the best way I would say is Instagram. So
what's your Instagram handle?
Sarah.Moxom, Moxom.
And I will tag all your Instagrams and everything in the show notes. But thank you so much yet again for coming on, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.